Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the My Career Path podcast. Today, I'm actually going to be reviewing another book that I was reading. This book was actually recommended by Mike Rowe and Dave Ramsey at the Entre Leadership live stream that they did a few weeks back, another episode that I covered previously. So they recommended this book and they actually talked to the author, Michael Easter, The Comfort Crisis. I just wanted to get my hands on it and see what it was about. So hope you guys enjoy. Let's check it out. So this is another book that I decided to pick up and start reading just because I felt like it just had a lot of prevalence to our day, our lives, especially us just getting out of college, getting out of high school, and just entering the workforce, and just how we kind of have this idea of we're entitled to certain things, whether it be a certain salary amount, whether it be a certain career, and that's just not the case. And so Michael Easter actually talks about his experience going into the Arctic. I think it was a month-long trip just about, and it was him, two other guys, and they were going elk hunting. And he just kind of relates a lot of the experiences that he had out there with kind of our modern daily lives. And between the storytelling of how things were out in the Arctic, he actually dives into research and whatnot about our condition today. How comfort is such a relatively new concept for humans. I mean, you think back to how our tribal ancestors were, and did they have any comforts or luxuries? No. They fought for their food, they had to fight to survive, and they had to continually be on the move. Michael Easter goes into this description of how our modern day and these comforts that we really enjoy and kind of love end up actually kind of hurting us, especially in a mental capacity, in a achievement and career capacity as well. So let's just kind of go over some of the main parts that I really enjoyed in this book. So one of the first things that Michael Easter talks about is this comfort of food. I mean, think about it. When was the last time you were actually hungry? And not, hey, my stomach's rumbling, I should go eat. Like, physically hungry. And there wasn't a way to satisfy it. Because think about it. Right now, if you're hungry or your stomach's rumbling, all you have to do is get up, go to the kitchen, and get yourself a snack. Highly processed, easily packaged foods that are just ready to eat, always. But when he's out there in the Arctic, he talks about, well, if you didn't pack it, you don't have it. And so comparing that to our tribal ancestors and how every day they had to get their own food. They had to hunt their own food. And so one of the research statistics that he actually shares in his book is that the Environmental Protection Agency, they did a research study, and we spend about 90% of our time indoors in these climate-controlled environments. Really, the only interaction we have with the weather is when we're walking to our car, which typically is, maybe 15, 20 seconds, especially if you're just going from your home straight to the parking lot at work. Another 30 seconds and you're inside. Back in the AC, we're all good, we're safe. And so how this kind of a modern comfort where we don't really interact with the environment or even with food in some ways has become really detrimental to us as a society and as humans. This and other modern comforts are creating mental and health crises that have never really been an issue before in relation to the history of humans. And so one of my favorite quotes from Michael Easter was actually about problem creep. And here's the quote: "As we experience fewer problems, we don't become more satisfied. We just lower our threshold of what we consider a problem. So we let these smaller things end up feeling like much, much bigger problems. First world problems, if you think about it." He relates this to our growing mental and health crises here in America. Something I've shared previously, but the number of people experiencing anxiety and depression is continuing to grow. Compared to when we were still living in tribes, we were a much more of a hunter-gatherer society. They literally didn't have time to feel anxious or depressed because if they did, they would die. So to fight against anxiety and depression, we have to kind of get out of our comfort zone. We have to branch out. Another factor that Michael Easter actually talks about is helicopter parenting and how that has kind of evolved into snowplow parenting, which I thought was just kind of a clever little line. Literally just pushing and removing any and all obstacles from our kids' path. And this doesn't mean that we can just blame our mental health challenges on our parents, nor am I saying that it's best to just let our kids fend for themselves and encounter any and everything in their way. But there's something about experiencing challenges and obstacles and getting out of your comfort zone that make us grow, that actually give us a little bit more of a mental fortitude. And I mean, the more we break free from our comfort zone and have to think and work through something, it actually increases our resilience. We're less likely to be anxious or depressed because we've gone through hard things before. But when we remove these obstacles and challenges completely from our lives or replace them with modern comforts, that's when we start seeing these really big spikes in anxiety and depression. And I don't want to make it sound like those problems are any less real than they are. They are real, and they are real feelings. But we have to just kind of work through it in a way. We have to be willing to take steps to actually challenge our anxiety and depression, get out of our comfort zones, go make friends and talk with people. We may consider ourselves an introvert, but getting out and talking about these issues and letting other people know and letting other people help is incredibly important. And something I like to relate this through is I remember my grandpa. He was a farm boy. He grew up in McCammon, Idaho, and his hands were always calloused over from working on the farm or the house. His hands were tough and felt honestly more like animal hide rather than real hands. And this repeated work of him moving, building, sanding, all of these things that he would do on the farm and raising the animals and the crop made his hands stronger, made them practically immune to splinters and cuts. Challenging ourselves build these layers onto our mental health as well. It's just that they're a lot less visible and physical than calluses. Another thing that I really liked that Michael Easter talked about was actually a Japanese term called misogi. And this term is from Japan, and it refers to the purification, which usually involves standing in a waterfall and letting it purify your mind and body. But it's also kind of taken on a new meaning, which is to push yourself to your limits and confront your fears, doubts, and weaknesses. And attempting these challenging things is actually purifying and life-changing, just like standing in the waterfall. So his journey in the Arctic was a type of misogi from him. It forced him to kind of get out of the modern comforts. He had to train for it. He had to go on long hikes and be mentally prepared for this journey. So when we really challenge ourselves, we feel a lot more self-confident and less anxious and depressed. So look for something that can be a misogi in your life. Something that you can start working towards and allow it to transform you. Allow it to force you to get out of your comfort zone, however uncomfortable that may be. For me, I started this show. I'm breaking out of my comfort zone because I considered myself an introvert. I never really wanted to network or build relationships with people. I just wanted to get my degree and then find a job and work at it until I retired. But that only lasted for so long because it just wasn't sustainable. I couldn't continue to do that and just go to work every day, put in my 8 hours and come home and live that on repeat. I needed something that was a little bit more fulfilling. And that's where I came up with the idea of the show, to help people like you and me to find jobs that they're actually really passionate about, that they enjoy. And work will always have pieces of work to it. There will be parts that you don't enjoy. But being able to see what's available, as opposed to you get out of high school and they say, well, go to college, you'll get a degree, and then you become an accountant, a lawyer, a doctor. There's so many more options available and so many new jobs that are being created. You think about how AI is affecting everything. You think about these new technological improvements that we have to be ready to deal with and handle and use to our advantage. There's so many opportunities out there more than just the common jobs that you hear about when you're growing up. Just jumping in here real quick to share a website I've used and will continue to use to improve myself and my career. Skillshare is an online learning community with over 20,000 classes to choose from. Whatever you're passionate about, you can find an amazing class on Skillshare to hone your practice. Skillshare has what you need. Learning is so critical for our lives and is a lifelong journey. Even when we finish school, we should keep on learning and keep working to improve ourselves. So you can try Skillshare absolutely free for 1 month. Go to Skillshare.com and sign up and use the code MyCareerPathFree. That's all lowercase, no spaces, to start your first month at no charge. And when you do decide to keep on taking those classes, use the code MyCareerPath30, that's MyCareerPath30, to get 30% off your first year on Skillshare. Keep learning and keep going. Now let's get back to the show. So for me, doing the show and working hard on it and trying to build it from the ground up has been challenging. There's been times where I don't want to do it, where I don't have the motivation or the effort. But every time I complete something, every time I'm uploading a new episode, it feels so much more accomplishing. It feels so much better than if I was just putting in my 8 to 5 and calling it a day. Another interesting topic that Michael Easter talks about is how we choose to fill our time. Boredom no longer exists. It's bordering on endangered species, honestly. Americans touch their phone over 2,500 times a day and use it for at least 2.5 hours staring at a small screen. And what are we typically using them for? Michael Easter actually describes it as junk food. We deal with boredom by doing the doom scroll. We're just scrolling endlessly on our social media feeds, watching shorts or TikToks or Instagram reels, constantly trying to get that little burst of dopamine when we find something funny or relatable. And this mental junk food just stimulates the brain, but only to fill time and to kind of burn a couple hours. But just like candy and sweets, it's highly addictive in nature. It's hard to break free from that. One of the images that I remember was a little harrowing in high school was an image of people staring at their smartphones, and it was like it had robotic arms and legs attached to their arm, and their face even, where it's you literally can't look away. You're stuck. You're addicted. These devices are incredible in the amount of information that we're able to gather, but they can also be incredibly addictive and huge time wasters. We have to be able to check how often we're using it, what we're using it for. If you're continually eating junk food and it goes unchecked, you end up putting on weight. So try to keep track of how often you're doing the doom scroll. I mean, our phones have a really cool feature where you can actually have a report generated each week that tells you how much screen time you had each day and on what apps. And I would encourage you to try to look at what apps you're spending time on and see if, is that really worth it? Is that really essential to what I need to do? So just try to start figuring out how you're going to cut back on that mental junk food. Another idea that Michael Easter discusses is about hunger and how there's two different definitions for hunger. The first one is that physical hunger that we talked about at the beginning of the show. It's that feeling of, I really need something. My stomach is craving something. My body needs it to survive. And how we've started to really never feel that. I mean, you could have anything almost from anywhere in the world delivered to your door in a matter of days or even a matter of minutes. Grubhub, DoorDash, all of these things where you can order food from the comfort of your own home and you don't even have to interact with anybody. They'll leave it at your door. And so we've really started to stray away from that physical hunger. We just don't feel that hunger anymore. We typically eat more around what time of day it is rather than how we're actually feeling. I think about my schedule, and pretty much as soon as I get up, I go to the kitchen and I start making breakfast. And then at about 11:30 or noon, that's when I typically have lunch. I come home, I eat a snack, and then we have dinner. And usually before I go to bed, I'll find some more sweets and I'll eat that. At no point did I ever feel hunger or that I really need to eat. It was more of, hey, it's that time. My body is used to having food at this time. Let's eat something. And it really makes it difficult because I eat a lot more than I probably need to or that I probably should. And that's something that I have to continually work at and I have to continually look towards is instead of eating depending on the time, how about waiting until I actually feel like I need it? Not waiting until I'm going to pass out. No, I'm not saying that, but waiting until I actually feel that hunger. The second definition of hunger is about that same kind of drive and desire to actually have something or want something. And you can see why they're related, how I can have a hunger for a certain career or hunger for a certain accomplishment or a hunger for a cheeseburger. It's that physical need to accomplish something. But both types of hunger are disappearing. And that other hunger of driving to reach a goal is also falling behind. Feeling that push to accomplish or reach something is also something that's kind of lost in our culture and society. We're so cushioned in our lives that we don't feel the need to push for a goal. We're happy being content with where we are. And this really kind of hurts us because we don't have that same vision. We don't have that same drive to achieve or progress more than what we currently have. There may be some things in political parties or agendas or other that claim progress, but really something that we can control is our own lives. What's your vision for the next 5 years? What kind of careers or dreams are you hoping to accomplish? This is something that we need to think of and actually start a plan towards. We don't get anywhere if we don't have a plan. We just end up wandering around, filling time, and ultimately it's not as fulfilling, which again leads back to the mental health crises and depression and anxiety rates continuing to increase. We're just continually trying to get through the day as opposed to working and making progress towards something that we actually really want. The last thing that I want to share is just something that Dave Ramsey and Mike Rowe said. We have to put the work in to actually get something greater out of it. There's so much comfort and so much contentment in our world today, whether that be in jobs or careers, where people end up just working the same job for years and years on end, but never really feel that satisfaction because they just need a paycheck. Or that same feeling of, I don't want to work because that's hard. I'd rather stay home. I'd rather play video games. I'd rather do a multitude of things rather than work. But it's important to actually have a goal, to strive for it, to kind of get out of your comfort zone and choose the harder right, because that ultimately ends up being the better option for us. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this little synopsis. I hope you guys pick up the book for yourself. As he relates his experiences in the Arctic, you just kind of get this feeling of, you know what, I really should kind of branch out more. I really should get out of my comfort zone and start making plans and working towards that. I promise you're going to achieve more as you actually set your sights on a target and feel that hunger to actually go and achieve it. So if you like this episode, make sure to leave a 5-star review. Let me know what kind of careers you guys are interested in. I'm going to have a couple more interviews coming up shortly. I'm getting them worked out with the people that I'm talking with, but I'd love to know what careers you guys are interested in or what fields you guys are hoping to go into, and maybe I can get someone on the show to talk about it. So reach out to me, colten, COLTEN, at mycareerpathpodcast.com. Send me an email. I'd love to hear from you guys. Anyway, that's all for now. Catch you guys later.